Hi everyone, this is Val from MiyukiCrystalBeads.com with another sparkling beading video. But before I get started, here's a quick reminder to check out our channel. And if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and notification bell to be notified every time we have a new posting. Our project today is a leather Tila wrap bracelet. And I'm just going to be covering how to use the different sizes of the Tila beads, along with some crystal beads added to a leather bracelet. Because if you know me, I always have to add some Swarovski crystal or some kind of crystal beads to my project just to make it a little bit more sparkly. So the products we'll be using are the various sizes of the Tila beads from Miyuki. We'll be needing a button with a shank large enough for your leather cord. We'll also be using this leather cord. It's a 1.5 millimeter. You'll be needing some Fireline, 2 size 11 beading needles, a mix of Swarovski crystal. I'm going to be using the 3 millimeter, but I may decide to also add a second wrap with the 4 millimeter. And you'll also be needing a scissors. To measure the amount of leather you're going to be using, you want to hold your leather down with like your thumb, and you want to wrap it around your wrist and wrap it as many times as you think. So I want to do a double row. I want enough leather to go around my wrist twice, but I'm going to also double it in half. So I need whatever fit around my wrist twice, plus I want to give it another about another foot to a foot and a half for knotting and ending. So I'm going to do a double wrap. So right now I'm looking at using 1 yard and 27 inches of leather, and then I'm using 3 yards of Fireline. So I inserted both my Fireline and my leather into the button shank. So when you choose your button, you want to make sure that you choose a button that your leather will fit through nicely and comfortably and still have some space to move around. Then you're going to want to center your leather right onto your button, or your button onto your leather, as well as with your Fireline. So once you have your button in the middle, you're going to want to hold your leather and your Fireline about 2 inches down from your shank. Now you're going to wrap that leather around 2 of your fingers. So just like this, wrap around 2 of your fingers. Insert the button into the rabbit hole and pull out your button. At the same time, you're going to want to push your leather up and pull your button, and also pull your Fireline down and your excess of your leather down. And make sure that's nice and tight right there. Now, to make this project a little bit easier for the tension to be nice and tight, I want to now use something that's raised. And you can use a pen or a beadboard or something, but I kind of find that a piece of that, like a little Scotch tape dispenser, works really nice for me because I want that height. And yet I also want it to be where I have like a gradual height difference. So I have my tape that I'm just holding that knot. I'm just taping down the knot on my button. And then I'm going to move my threads off to the side. And now I want to tape down my leather. So if you're working like on a table surface or on a paper, you just want to tape your leather down right there, just like that. So you see I have this height difference. This kind of looks like an escalator going down. And I want to make sure my threads are in the same place. Now I have my threads right on the outside of my leather. And now I'm going to actually take one side and wrap it around and out. Go from in and out. So whatever I'm going to do to one side, I'm going to do the opposite side. So now I want to lift up my leather to bring it a little higher up, and then I'm going to thread my needles. So because we're going to be using a mixture of sizes and colors, I kind of put together a little cheat sheet already for me. Don't mind that it's not completely straight, but you'll know that I'm going to do this bigger, just one single, then I'm going to add 3, so 1 half Tila and 2 quarter Tilas, and then 4 quarter Tilas, and then 2 half Tilas, and so on. And so this is going to be one set of my design. If you're working with multiple shades and multiple colors, it is a good idea to start with a darker finish on the edge first, because then you see a gradation of color rather than having a dark right in the beginning. I'm right in the middle without any on the sides. it kind of makes your bracelet look a little stunted. So by adding a darker finish on one end and working your way out and then continuing with darker as we go along in a pattern, it makes the design a little bit flow a little bit better. And it will be adding some crystals in between as well. So I'm going to start off with a 1 crystal and a 3mm bicone. And because the beginning is small, you want to use that 1 bicone there just to kind of hold it in place. So we're going to be creating this section here. So with 1 small, and then we're going to be making 2 smalls next to it. So I've threaded my needles, and I have a needle on each side of my line, and I'm just going to string up the bead on 1 needle. And you want to bring the bead past your needle onto the thread, just like this, and then you're going to want to pull your line, and then when it gets a little closer to the base, you're going to pull your line together, and we're going to pick up one side at a time. We're going to go from under and out from the center and pull that line up and out, go from under, between, and out, pull that line tight and up. So every time when we pull up, then you want to take your thread and pull your thread apart just a little bit. Okay, with our left needle again, I tend to usually add to my left, but really it's up to you which side you want to add, whichever is more comfortable for you. So 2 bicones in the 3mm. Bring the beads past your needle onto the thread. Go with the opposite side needle and cross through from the opposite direction. Pull your line out. And pull your line tight. Now you're going to go from under and out and pull it up, under and out, and pull up your thread. So we're going to start off with the Tila beads. And now you know Tila beads have 2 holes, so we're going to start with 1 hole and work within that 1 hole until we've crossed through our line. So string up that 1 Tila, bring it through the needle onto the thread, and then cross from the opposite side with the other needle. And we're going to pull our lines tight just like this. And we're going to work with 1 needle at a time now. So we're going to go from under and out through the center and up from outward into the center. So under and out the center, and then pull your line tight. So bring it up and tight. Now we're going to sew into the same bead, but now into the second hole. So we're going to go from just sew right into the bead, to the second hole, and just pull out your thread. And with your opposite side, we're going to do the same thing. Cross through from the opposite side into the same hole. So basically you're creating like little X's through each hole. Right? And pull that line tight. So every time you go through the bead, you want to pull your line tight. Now we're going to go with 1 side of our thread. We're going to go from under and out, pull your line up, and the opposite line, go from under and out also, and pull your line out. Just like this. So now we're going to start off with our mix of our next things. So we're going to use that half Tila and 2 of our quarter Tilas in this kind of really pretty peachy tone. Now you're probably wondering why I chose these colors. It's just kind of a big mix of colors, but I wanted to create this southwesty pastel look. And it kind of reminds me of the Sonoran Desert sunset, or their colors. I just think it's really pretty. Lots of good memories there. So I just kind of wanted to create a look that reminded me of that, like a pastel, even Native American coloring. So here is the 3 beads that I chose. And now I'm going to go from the opposite direction with my needle. So crossing through those 3 beads. And then we want to pull our threads out. And we just want to make sure our beads all flip in the same direction. And pull your line tight. Now we're going to go from under and out with one line and bring your line up, under and out, and bring your line out. Now it's important not to rush when you're working with these little beads at first. You really want to give yourself a nice tension. Okay, so now we're ready to start our next bead. So now we're going to go into the holes, all 3 holes of the second hole set of your tila. And pull your line tight all the way if you'd like. And then go through the other set. Make sure you grab all of the holes and pull your line out. Right, and pull tight. So each time after you sew through the second set of holes in your beads, you're going to want to take your line and go from under and out on each side. So I did this side and now on the opposite side. And then you're going to want to pull your line up. And that just gets you ready for your next set of beads. So now we're going to do a yellow, our next section, which is here. We're going to do a yellow and 3 blues. Okay, so I strung up my 4 beads, starting with the yellow and adding the 3 blues, and bring it out of your needle into the thread area and go with your opposite side needle and cross through the same beads that you just did from the opposite side, and then pull your lines out. Pull your line tight. Just make sure all these little pieces are all facing the same direction, because sometimes they are a little rascal and they just want to keep flipping around. So there we go, nice and tight. And then take your needle and go from under and out. Okay, and then you're going to go into the second set of holes on with each needle. And give it a nice tug. And every time you do that, you want to kind of press down on your beads just to make sure it's sitting nice and straight underneath. Same thing, under and out, and bring your lines up higher, just like this, and see how it brings it up, just like that, right under the bead that you just did. So now I'm going to string up my 2 half tila purples and go with the opposite side and cross into that same hole. Pull your line tight. And these are just perfect little squares. And on our website, we have so many beautiful colors on eurekacrystalbeads.com. I love looking at them online. I just think it's so pretty just to see all the colors. So I crossed through and pulled my line tight. So now I want to go in from under and out, from under and out. Bring your line up and then cross through the second set of holes on your same tila and pull your line tight. Okay, so our next section is going to have our full-size tila in this beautiful peach. Cross through with the opposite side needle. Pull your line tight. Under and out. Under and out and pull up. Now we're going to go into the second hole. Kind of pulled that line when I got my thread caught on something, so I just want to readjust before I continue too much. Now with my other needle, I'm going to go into that same second hole of this tila, like this, and then go from under and out just to make sure we are all nice and tight. Under and out, under and out. Pull up your line right here, and now we're going to do our last section of our set. So we're going to do 2 yellows, a blue, and then a peach. So we have these 4, and into all the beads with your needle. Under and out, opposite side, under and out. Bring your line up, and then sew into the next set of beads, the next set of hole rather, the second hole of the beads. Move your line off to the side and go with the opposite thread and needle and pull your line out. So I finished the first section of my patterning, which looks like this. See, don't we look alike? Anyway, here is the first section, and now I'm going to work on this next section. So now I'm going to be incorporating this really pretty periwinkle color. As I start each section is where I want to add a new set of crystal. So I'm just going to add in now kind of a greenish double AB, kind of a green blue, kind of symbolizing turquoise. So I'm just going to pull that into my thread section and cross through with my opposite line into both crystals. Okay. And then pull your beads out from your needle, pull it a bit out each, and pull your thread tight and outward in, outward in. So just remember, every time you pull your line tight, you're going to want to bring your thread outward in and bring your line up, and just bring your thread up and pull tight. So now this is getting up pretty stiff, but yet still flexible, that it can go around your wrist. So I'm going to continue on this color combination with my beads here. So starting with my periwinkle, I'm going to do the same thing we did all the way over here, and then I'm going to just repeat. So when I'm done with this section, then I'm going to repeat with this section, and so on until I reach the desired length that I want. And just keep in mind, in between each section, you're going to add 2 bicones, and you can alternate the bicones or use different colors. It's really up to you the color combination you want. So now I've finished my second pattern, starting from the periwinkle, and made my combination just like this. So it really just helps to have this cheat sheet like I showed you earlier. And so now I'm going to continue on my sets with my first set right here that I did right here. So I'm going to start with this. But as you notice, it is getting a little long down here. And so it's a good idea to actually, at this point, lift your tape up on both ends and just kind of pull it over a little bit and tape this part down, just so that you have some new area to work with. Just tape back up here and just reposition your cording and tighten it up at the base where your other tape is. It's just another piece of Scotch tape right here. And I'm going to continue on by starting off with my section of bicone crystal here. So I did the red crystal, then I had that turquoise green blue crystal, and now when I'm starting my next section, because I'm going to use the orange, I'm going to use this kind of reddish orange color. So just into the bicones, cross through, pull your line tight, under and out, under and out, pull your line tight, and now we're ready for the full tila in this pretty red orange. Under and out, and under and out. All right, so I'm just going to continue on the same as my first section. I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I think I'm going to probably end up doing one more row of this, but I'm going to figure that out and I will be back. So I have just a fun mix of color shades that I kind of felt I saw in here, but I added a little bit more pink. So I'm just going to start with just grabbing any bead that comes to me. So string up on one needle, your bicone, opposite needle, so into the bicone, pull your lines tight, and then needle, under and out, under and out, pull your line up, add your next bead. So you can either go all just the same bead or you can go with variations of beads. Now I don't know if I want to go really just all multi or if I want to kind of do a patterning of color. So I'm still kind of not too sure about that, kind of on the fence. So I think I will kind of do coloring. I'm going to stick with the blues first, so any shade of blue really. So string up your crystal and go into the opposite side with your other needle and then pull your line tight. Go under and out and then pull that line tight. I'm going to another shade of blue or even the same shade, it doesn't really matter. I think we're just going to go for kind of just a color of, just a look of different colors. That's really all that matters. And just adding in a purple. Okay, so I'm just going to continue down enough so that it wraps around my wrist with the crystal and this Tila's at least twice around, and I will be back. So now pulling my last bead nice and tight, and now I just want to go from under and out again with both of my needles. Pull that up tight so we make sure our bead is sitting nicely, and then we're going to sew back into the bead. So the line from this side is going to sew into the bead in the same opposite direction. Then you're going to take your thread and tie your thread in a knot, just like a regular knot. I'm going to try to leave my needles there so I don't have to restring it. Oops, one came out. Okay, one really good tug. And then we're going to weave our thread back into our bead on the last bead we added, and up, around, and through one more bead. Just want to give it a little bit more of an anchor, our thread, and then out through the last bead. And this is where your needle comes in extra handy. So I'm going to thread up this needle that fell off a bit ago, and I'm going to sew into the same bead. Pull your thread out, go from under, pull your line up and go through this next bead here and then across. And again, this is just to anchor it. You could tie a knot where you are, go through one or two beads and just put some adhesive on the knot, but I'm going to just weave through these beads just a little bit longer. Okay, so now I can cut off my excess of my thread, and then we can release our tape from our tape dispenser, our project from our tape dispenser and all the tape. So here is our pastel Southwest Tila's and my mixture of colors of crystal to kind of mimic my Southwesty colors. And so now I want to just make sure this goes around my wrist comfortably. So of course you can just try it on. And yep, it will. So right now you're going to want to tie a knot right underneath your last beads you added. If your knot went a little lower than you planned, you can just kind of loosen up that knot and pull it up a little bit. And then we're going to we want to make sure that our button will go through the next knot of loops. So we're going to make a knot out of our leather, and this part here will be open so that we can slip our button in as our clasp. So you want to make it comfortable enough for it to go through, but yet not too loose where it's going to fall out. So once you've done that, you can just wrap your leather around one finger, slip your ends in, and just before you make that knot tight, you want to just see if your button fits comfortably. And then pull, give your leather a little bit of a tug just to make sure. And then we're going to make it a little bit more adjustable just in case the person who's wearing it has a bigger wrist than what we planned on, or maybe you just want to wear it a little looser that day. We're just going to make an additional knot loop. So side by side, and just again make sure your button will go through. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and I think it will. So I'm going to pull that leather tight and I'm going to cut off the excess. And it's kind of nice to cut them off at 2 different lengths and a slight bit of an angle, because it gives it a little bit more finished look, I think. So now we're going to wrap around and see how we like it. Put our button through that little catch. And here we go. So here's our finished project. This is our Tila leather wrap bracelet. Again, our button. And if you wanted to put it in the second one to make it a little bit bigger, that's how it will look. And it'd be kind of fun if you can even add a little charm at the bottom, or just wear it just like this. All the supplies we used in today's project are listed in the comment section below. And like always, you can find all these supplies and more on EurekaCrystalBeads.com. Thanks for joining us.